If your flight isn't canceled already in this mess, should flyers start thinking about canceling themselves? Should you be doing that right now? To Airline Weekly, Seth Kaplan on what you have a right to do and not do, at least at this point. What do you do, Seth?
Yeah, well, if your flight is not canceled, Neil, you know, it's almost like down here in South Florida, we don't have snowstorms, but with hurricanes, we tell people don't try to outrun the storm. And it's kind of like that with flights. If the airline hasn't canceled your flight, it's because the best shot of getting to your destination is probably to stick with the flight you have. For all that's wrong in the world, one thing airlines do a little bit better these days than they used to is proactively cancel flights when they think the flight won't operate. So if your flight is still scheduled, your best bet is to head out to the airport and try to make that flight.
And you're going to pay a fine if you don't, right?
Well, airlines have different policies. You know, they are more flexible, certainly, when things are as they are today. They'll let you make some changes without penalties or fees that they wouldn't normally let you make. But then you're kind of at the back of the line for getting on that next flight. Right. You're competing with all kinds of other people. So if you're lucky and your flight's not canceled, which of course is not the case for many people, stick with that flight until told otherwise.
Well, you know how it goes, though, Seth. A lot of people have to be there 1 hour to 2 hours ahead of when they depart. They see the snow coming down. Let's say you're in a region that's affected by the storm, and they just know that by the time they get to the airport, oh, surprise, surprise, the flight's canceled. So that's why a lot of them don't even make the mission. You're saying they're at risk of being socked with penalties depending on the airline, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they all have their policies. But airlines nowadays, Neil, especially with these storms this year, have been canceling flights sometimes a day, even 2 days before a flight when they think the flight's probably not going to operate. So, you know, when it's several hours before the flight, and I mean, look, we saw what happened at LaGuardia. Obviously, things can change quickly. But usually these days, if it's 3 or 4 hours before the flight and that flight is still scheduled, consider yourself lucky. That flight is probably going to operate. That might not have been the case 10 years ago when airlines really had a different approach. I mean, they tried to fly through it as long as it was safe to fly, and then when the weather turned, well, you were just kind of stuck where you were. Nowadays, if they say that flight's probably going to happen 3 or 4 hours from now, it probably will. When your flight is canceled, of course, that's when things change, and you have to start doing all kinds of other things to be creative and make sure that you get one of those very few seats on the next flight.
Right, or look for an airport food court. Seth, thank you very, very much. Good seeing you, my friend.
Likewise.